HFP Discusses ICW. And me. Or you.
Yeah. This is, like, shouldn't be called ICW. It should be called one of Sam's first indie wrestling events. Like, I've been to some when I was very young, but this is, like, the first I've been to when I could, like, buy beer. Not that I would, because I don't drink. Yeah. But, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So, backstory to this is Jack, our mutual friend Jack, who we did a People with Happy Fingers with.
Yeah.
Longest one in history, often referred to as the boring one.
Yeah.
Although I think some are more boring, you know. I don't think it's the worst. Doesn't make it good, but I don't think it's the worst.
Nah.
Using EA FIFA strategy for advertising. He's back from Australia. He's going to be going again. We've touched base a lot. We went to a WWE house show, which was, it was alright for what it was. We sat right at the back of the arena, fucking amazing view, and just booed who we wanted to boo. And two of the lads were there, and it was, was what it was. But he came up with the idea that we would try and go to more wrestling events, like local events. Like, I think he said one a fortnight, but I don't know if my wallet's going to hold that. But he came up with that, and we saw a poster for this event. Didn't register anything about it, except it was Drew Galloway, who used to wrestle as Drew McIntyre in the WWE. He was part of the 3MB band, and before that was the Chosen One. I fucking hated him. Like, not in the X-Pac way, but in the I didn't like him. He was on SmackDown and heels and blah. So we saw a poster for that on our way into the Sheffield Arena, so we ended up getting tickets. Now, I then found out, while I was waiting for it, that it's ICW, who are Insane Championship Wrestling, who are from Scotland, and do the advertisements at the beginning of Botchamania.
Nice.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, this will probably be a win. Or there'll be botches. Who knows? I don't know what to expect from this shit. So the event got off to a great start when it was called Up, Down, Left, Right, AC Start, which is a Mega Drive cheat. I think it's level select in Sonic, but that might be AB Start. But it's like one of the standard cheats. Up, Down, Left, Right, AC Start was like a generic Mega Drive cheat. You'd put it on games and see what you got type shit. So this is a win. This is a win. And then doors were supposed to open at 6:30. Didn't open till gone 7. So that was a bit of a decline. But there were millions of people in fancy t-shirts. Can you like long hair and t-shirts like the Botch is here and Bullet Club, which are the stable I showed you, where AJ Styles and stuff, wrestling stuff. Yeah. Okay. So we finally get in. Jack gets a pint, offers me a drink. I asked for an orange juice. Do you want half for a pint? I thought, I'll go a pint. Pint of orange juice.
Yeah.
£6 something. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot how expensive everything is these days.
Yeah.
This is
tap water.
Yeah, I should have tap watered it. I still owe Jack a drink for the record, because when I offered to buy him back, he went, no, I'm alright. So okay. Right, so your wrestling event's got a good name, but it seems to be starting a little late. What's a good way to begin? To pull someone like me on board. I'm a little, like, I wasn't skeptic. I was having fun, kind of listening to people's chants and looking at the fancy costumes and stuff, and going like boy, 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 girl, 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 boy, girl. Oh wow, girls come to this too, type thing.
Yeah.
But what would you? What's the first thing you'd want to bring out?
We're gonna want to bring out people that are hyped up, good at talking. Maybe some. Either hardcore or high flying. Depends. Are you talking match or are you talking?
How about a guy whose moniker is the Bollocks, Kenny the Bollocks, who dresses almost like Marty McFly from Back to the Future, including jacket, sneakers that light up, and skateboard without wheels that looks like a hoverboard.
Nice.
To 80s music, The Power of Love. Yeah, I'm on board, right?
Yeah.
And I should say now, like, I've been spoiled, like completely fucked up by WWE and the amount of space they have between the ring and the fans. Like I could put my arm out, and if I leaned over the barrier, and we were at the barrier, you touching the ring. Like, I've never been that fucking close. Like, if you could see everything type thing, and it was like, that was insane. So when they're coming around, like slapping high fives, they're like leaning back to slap high fives on people. So this guy comes out, fucking amazing, like 80s thing, Paralove, Mike McFly, light up sneakers, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting. And then the next thing, this techno rave music hits that. I've just played you the theme, and then this guy comes out, long black flowing hair, red Adidas jacket thing. Fans are all chanting. Loads of people knew. It was like their first show in Sheffield, but loads of people are up to date.
Yeah.
So I sort of took my prompt from him that I was supposed to cheer both guys here. And they got into dueling chants and stuff. And it was for the Zero G Championship, which I've later heard stands for Zero Gravity Championship. But it's a championship where there were no rules. But instead of going hardcore with it, they've gone high flying. And the idea is you defy gravity and stuff.
Yeah.
So those two are Highflyers. And they put on a fucking awesome match. And they did the whole, like, one guy was going to win, but he accidentally knocked the guy out of the ring on his finisher. And I was genuinely thinking, oh, that might be a title change here, first show, you know. There wasn't, but it turned out it had changed like a week ago, or 2 weeks before we'd gone. So I was like, oh, so they actually do change at the, you know, non-big events maybe and stuff. So that was fucking awesome. And I was, like, hyped as fuck. Like, Highflyers. When's the last time you had a good high-flying match in WWE? I don't mean just a spot. I mean a good high-flying match. Ignoring the NXT stuff that I've shown you, because that was
long
awesome.
ass time ago on the basis that that's the stuff I used to watch and I don't watch WWE anymore.
Because that kind of
spot-wise,
stuff
WrestleMania was the last one that I saw, but it was just a mini spot where everyone decided to jump out of the ring, and it was a ladder match, so that was a really small spot for high flying for a ladder match, and the main spot that's high flying is everyone jumping out of the ring.
Fair play. Then after that match, which was great, this bold Scottish guy came out. I don't know his name, but he was obviously a heel, and his heel group was called the New Age Clique, referencing the New Age Outlaws and the Clique.
Yeah.
Now this is where I have a little bit of a thing, because I don't know how I feel about referencing bigger organisations rather than focusing on your own thing. I just sometimes feel a bit like it just reminds me that the other shit's out there that has better production values and everything else. But they call what they want type thing. And this guy was some heel, and he was talking about how he'd beaten up some guy. And then this guy was going to come out, and his video played, and he looked like Joker, but then he didn't come out, and apparently he was injured. And then some other guy came out. And I don't know any of these guys, but the guy who came out first of all, guy's getting booed, and then the other guy who came out, he was sort of like, he was a big guy, but he was big in the right ways where it looks like he can move and fly and is a wrestler. And he had kind of scruffy hair, but in that kind of, this is cool now, scruffy hair and facial hair and stuff. And he came out, and the fans sort of cheered him a bit, but not massively. And he sort of explained that the guy who was supposed to be out wasn't out because he was injured, it was because he had a concussion and some stuff. And then the fans started chanting to this guy that he looked like a paedophile. Or some fans did. Other fans were cheering him. He was meant to be the good guy.
Yeah.
And his response was like, you'd know, you were fucked, but you lost your virginity to one. You called him dad. And that got like all the fans cheering for him and chanting. I was like, oh yeah, this is how it's gonna be, I guess, at an 18+ wrestling event. Paedophile references, that's fine. And then the guy challenged him to a Sheffield street fight. What the fuck is a Sheffield street fight?
It's the street fight in Sheffield,
no,
obviously.
But it wasn't. There was no bowling, there was no knives, there was none of the shit that you get when you see fights in the city. A Sheffield street fight is a fight outside fucking on West Street somewhere, involving bottles being thrown and people screaming. But it got like a cheap round of applause, I guess, but it didn't. But then they had a fight, and there was a lot of like flying to the rails and stuff. Oh shit, before that, he started making fun of the guy for being bald, and there happened to be a cameraman filming who was bald, and the bald guy went and put his hands over the cameraman's ears and screamed, "Ignore them, Tommy, ignore them!" And I was like, that's nice touch there, nice touch. I have forgot to mention, before everything started, this guy came out who I think is their commentator guy, and he did a bunch of material and really kind of was good at getting the crowd hyped and energetic. And then they have a ring announcer called Simon, and he was standing there about, we're going to do the intro now, will you all cheer? I'll look at Tiny Simon on the screen. Oh, I shouldn't say that. And then for the rest of the show, whenever the announcer came out, everyone would chant Tiny Simon at him. And at one bit he got in the ring like early on, he's like, is that just going to be the thing now type thing? He's like, I take my hat off to you, you're keeping it going, I'm impressed type thing. This street fight, it just seemed to be brawl through the audience, a bit brawl back, and there was a few enziguris and then some chair stuff, and the bald guy cut himself on the back. But there was also like, I'm not a shrinking violet when it comes to hardcore stuff, but there were some unprotected, straight to the head chair shots. And given the whole history of Chris Benoit and how they look and stuff, just seeing them live and hearing it off the score was just like, I don't like this. And also they had different coloured chairs, but it was a standing arrangement. So why were the chairs under the ring? Who put them there? What was their intention? But, you know, that's
Yeah.
what it is. Then there was a tag team match, and the first group came out, and it was led by this Cockney guy. They were called 55 or something. This Cockney guy, some Scottish guy, and then another guy who would be involved in a later match who turned out was from somewhere in Yorkshire, and I'll come back to that guy. And then one guy came out with this guy, like he had a manager who was an older guy with a whistle and stuff, and it had already been said that this was going to be a tag title match, and he had the tag belt. But then they were sort of talking about like, oh, you just challenged us on your own then? And then they sort of beat him up for a bit, and then his other tag partner, who was called something like Iron something, and he wore eyeliner and looked kind of like, imagine Ryback meets Gold Dust a bit.
Okay.
With like some face paint on and stuff. And he came out late. So I was already like people were cheering him, but I was like, no, you left your tag partner to get beaten up, you dick. Why don't you just come out with him? Fucking, what's the point? You're a bad tag team partner. And they only had one belt.
Yeah.
I don't know why that. Then the highlight was the London guy. It was like the three of them were obviously really good wrestlers or knew what they were doing, kind of. There was no botches or anything. But the London guy just had this natural hate charisma and was playing off the crowd. And because he was Cockney, all the fans started chanting the EastEnders theme. So like he'd be on the apron and you just get this da 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 da, and then he'd start screaming, "Shut up! I'm not a Cockney! Shut up!" And it was like, there's one of my favourite crowd chants of all time. Like, I've never seen that level of kind of playing off each other and stuff. The match ended and the good tag team won with the guy who'd come out late, and then they were all celebrating but with only one belt, and the guy who came out first held the belt, and I was like, you damn right you held the belt. You wrestled the whole match. Your partner couldn't even be bothered to turn up. Fuck this kind of shit. Then they went, then after that, I think there was an intermission. There might have been another match, but if there was, I'm kind of forgetting it. But they were all the matches that we sort of had announced for us, so I wasn't sure what was going to happen next. And then that was like, on the intermission, I smoke an e-cigarette now.
Yeah.
So went outside to, I treat it like a cigarette, because it's like, you don't know where it lets you smoke it and where it doesn't. And Jack's just hanging around me. Like, Jack's just in his element, just fucking loving it. Like, we both were. Oh, the other thing I should mention is, you're so close to the ring that when they do spots like diving out the ring, someone tells you to be careful, and then the people pull the barrier back. So it's like, you're part of the show type shit, just pulling it back, which was like, was great, except I didn't know that was coming, so I got bowled over the first fucking time. This big, huge guy just pulled me fucking back. Oh shit, there was another match, I think, and it involved a guy called Grado, who I think is sort of like their very over but slightly more over than the show face guy. He comes out to music and dances a lot type thing. I think he's like the fans love him, you know, kind of thing. And he had this match, and it was like just kind of brawly, and they went outside a bit and then went inside the ring a bit, and then there were lots of chops and throws and kicks, and he kept doing like barrel roll things into the guy, and it was like entertaining for what it was. But one bit he grabbed the guy he was facing, pulled him around the fans, and then had the fans slap him. And I'm stood really near the front at this point holding my coat, and he's like, "You and the coat, give him a slap." And I was like, "No." I was like, "It's not done up to me." In my head I'm like, I don't know if he's a bad guy or not. I do not know enough about this situation to know whether giving him a slap is a good idea or not. And then the guy next to me just fucking chopped the guy, and the guy's screaming and selling it. I was like, yeah, fucking A. And then he moved on a bit, and when we'd been outside, we'd been talking to a couple of guys. One of them had glasses, and he delivered a slap. And then I don't know if he slapped him too hard or whether it was because he gave him shit. This guy he gave him shit when he came back round, but the wrestler then turned to him and like got in his face and then slapped the glasses off his face and then got back in the ring. And I was like, I'm really glad in my decision not to touch that guy. that could have been me. And then the security guard suddenly jumped over the rail and sort of pushed us out the way to the side. So I was like, oh shit, maybe there's a fight or something. And then they came back with this guy who, someone said his name is something Chris Travis or something. And he got in the ring. And he saved the good guys. And the guy who had the Sheffield Street fight also came out. And then some bad guys had come out and they'd thrown them away. And then they started doing a dance. And it was a very forced dance. And the bald guy, people were like cheering him and saying, oh, he's back and stuff. I was like, I have no fucking idea who he is. And he didn't really do much. Why is he important? And he can't dance well. And then the guy who did the Sheffield Street fight sort of did a worm. And he was smiling, but it looked very forced fun. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, I'm not quite getting this. You should bring back the 80s guy, the bollocks who looked like Marty McFly, because he looked like he was having fun dancing. You guys just looked like it's forced. Except the Grado guy, who looked amazing. Yeah. Like, he was just over and doing chants, and I really enjoyed that. Anyway, the intermission, I treat my cigarette like a cigarette, so I go outside to the smoking area with it, and every fucker else is smoking, so I'm just, like, in a corner, just smoking my spearmint-flavoured e-liquid, and they're all looking at me like, you fucking pussy. It's like, it saves me money. And I went back in, like, we had hype. They said, in the intermission, they said some wrestler called Nikki Storm or someone was, like, signing autographs. I had no fucking idea who she was, so I didn't bother. Yeah. I now wish I'd bothered, because she would later have a match, and I was like, okay, she's fucking awesome. But anyway, we came back from intermission, and there was a 4-way number 1 contenders match, and the other half of the Chev guy from the first guy, you know, he came out. The guy, I've shown you the thing, the guy called Joe, was it Joe Kennedy?
Hendry?
Joe Hendry, who sings along to his own theme, and his own theme is like ICW MW stuff. Fucking love that guy. He came out. Some other guy came out that the fans really liked, and he looked like he was good, but he didn't do many moves. And then there was a 4th guy who was part of the 55 group, who they announced as being Thirsk, from Thirsk in Yorkshire, in North Yorkshire. So everyone started chanting Yorkshire, and it was almost like he was the good guy. But then the chant of "We hate Leeds scum" started, and everyone started booing him, and he started going, "I'm not from Leeds." He said, No, I'm not from Leeds. But that was it. He was from an area close to Leeds, maybe, so he was the heel again. Yeah. Thing. And they did like a thing where everyone went to kick someone, and someone would catch their foot and swing it into one guy's bollocks. And then the referee got involved, so all 5 guys were down, having been hit in the balls. Yeah. And at one bit, all 5 guys tried to help each other up, sort of standing in a circle, and all just fell down, like, simultaneously. And it was a fun, like, quite good match. And then this big, huge motherfucker that looked like their version of Rusev. Imagine Rusev with a long beard. Yeah. Came out. Almost exactly the same look. And he's just fucking beats the shit out of everyone. And then he seemed to be made the number 1 contender. And I was like, why is it in wrestling? Like, by the laws of wrestling, I have beaten up the contender. Now I am the contender. No, I've broken the rules and should be suspended or kicked out or fined. It's no. If I beat up these 4 guys, and I was like, I hate that kind of logic anyway. Like, because it's just like, no, you can't steal your turn. That's bullshit. But also, like, these 4 guys were in a number 1 contenders match, so in theory they were all potential world champions, or had been or not, I don't know. And there was some good, like Joe Hendry was hitting these suplex things, and they were so fucking smooth. I was like, that guy, I don't know how old he is or young, or like what his attitude's like backstage, but he could, like, I could see him in TNA or WWE. I could just see him, like, he just had that stuff, like, charisma going on. Anyway, like, the big guy hit them all and just beat them up. It was like, so were they number 1 contenders or not? Because if it was just a 4-way and you wanted to get the guy over, fine, just throw 4 jobbers out there and have them do some shit. But these seem like I got the impression these were all important people, and now it's like, no, none of them were. This guy was important because he cheated, but he didn't even.
I had that at WrestleMania when Rollins comes out and cashes in the Money in the Bank, and then you have him win by pinning. Who's this guy's name? Non-Rock.
Non-Rock. Reigns.
Reigns.
Roman Reigns. Non-Rock.
He's not the Rock.
Yeah.
He wants to be the Rock, though. Yeah. Like, to me, when you cash in the Money at the Bank, that gives you a shot against the champion. So, in my head, how that should work at that moment is that rather than being suddenly becoming a freeway, because it doesn't get him a shot at fighting against Roman Reigns, it gives him a shot against fighting against Lesnar.
Yes.
To me, that should have made Lesnar in 2 simultaneous singles matches. And they should both have only been able to pin Lesnar to win the title.
I can see that shit. I can see that shit. WWE's just done it recently with Paige. They turned one of their characters, Naomi, heel by having her beat up Paige, and then announced that she had replaced Paige as the #1 contender. Like, these rules encourage...
How does this work?
Why don't I just go around beating up contenders until I'm the contender?
Yeah, if you want to do that, right, just give up and go back to the hardcore title. 24/7 rule. Yeah. You pin the champ, you are the champ. That's it.
The wrestling belt man. I want to go back a bit because I was a bit down on the Iron Man guy.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. The other thing that really fucking annoyed me on him was he used all of Cesaro's moves, like the big swing and throwing them up in the air and then hitting the European uppercut and stuff. And I really didn't like that. Basically, his 90% of his moveset was one guy's moveset.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, that bugs me. And then in the Grado match, they used an F5 and an FU. And I was sort of like, surely there are other moves that are more unique to you that you could be doing that I could be like, wow, that was awesome, and then see another one. But then it can also work. For instance, in one match, there was the Canadian Destroyer. Do you remember that? It's like the pile driver where they both jump
360.
Yeah. They hit that.
Front flip.
I was like, that's so fucking awesome. Like, it looks amazing anyway.
Yeah.
And because Pete Williams isn't really... I think he's retired now, in fact. And it's not a move that WWE would do, that it was like, okay, this is fucking awesome. Yeah. Right. Then the next match comes. And again, I am no Shrinking Violet. But I've never seen a hardcore match live before. And I'm not a fan. I totally get why people are, and this is where people are going to call me a fucking pussy. But they had this match, and this guy called Jack Jester came out. And I can only describe him as, I imagine the feeling you get with him is the kind of feeling you got with Cactus Jack in like the Japanese death matches and ECW and WCW, where it wasn't promos, it was just a very threatening looking individual who looked like a fucking badass. And the guy he thought was big... he was big, but he was like muscular. He looked like a wrestler. And he came out with a sort of weird mask thing, and he already had like red on him, like it almost looked like he'd been dipped in blood type thing. Yeah. And their match was horrible. Like, it was just, they went to the outside, they're throwing each other in the fucking barriers, throwing each other into the bars, chair shot after chair shot. He had a corkscrew, but he didn't actually use it, and when he had the corkscrew, the fans were chanting, like, up his ass, up his ass. And I was like, I don't want to see that. I really don't think any of you really want to see... I don't think you thought through what will happen and what it will look like and what we will be witness to and what we will be telling our fucking therapist if he shoves that up his ass. Like, there was an amazing crowd, but like this, it was kind of like... most of the other matches had been kind of fun or had an element of fun or had been moves in the ring kind of thing. With that match, it was just so fucking brutal. And they basically killed each other, like throwing each other around, hit each other with shit. And they're both walking kind of stiff and, like they're taking punishment and that. And there was some dives off the ring apron and all sorts of horrible stuff. And it went on for ages. And I was like, this isn't even for a world title. Like maybe if it's a world title match or a huge epic feud ender, like I could understand the epicness and it would feel, but I was like, this just feels like a thrown together match, and these guys are punishing themselves like this. It's like, why? This kills it. Like, I don't want to call it garbage wrestling, but that's how it felt. It felt like, I'm going to go home, I'm not going to think about this match, I'm going to think about Marty McFly and the kick in the balls segment and just how good the Bucky Boys theme is, and Joe Hendry and all the suplexes and shit. And maybe I'll think about how I hate Iron Man. I was like, that match, I'm not going to go back and think, wow, what a fucking badass. You go with a chair, and it was horrible. Yeah. One other thing I've not mentioned that was a nice touch is sometimes after matches, people's tag team partners would come out to help them back to the ring. And I was like, back to the backstage, sorry, not the ring. And I was like, that's a nice touch. It keeps giving me an idea of who's who type thing. Then we had a women's match, and unfortunately at this point, slightly far away from me, some guys were very drunk and decided the women's match was when they were going to come alive chanting, and their chants were "Ayo" and "Get your rat out" and "Show us your tits," and they were the only 3 chants that those guys were repeatedly doing, and that just distracted a bit. But this women's match, it had the first woman was Nikki Storm, who was the woman that was doing the autographs that didn't come out, and she looked like a wrestler. You know, she looked kind of like Trish Stratus, kind of bodybuild wrestler, and she came out and did some promo about how she was going to Japan and this was her last match, but then also about how she got everything she wanted, including cheesecake and strawberry flavoured hairspray. So it's a bit like, I think you're meant to be the arrogant heel, I'm going to boo you. And that seemed to be socially acceptable within the crowd. Then the next woman came out, and her name was like Kaylee Ray or something on that line. And she was like tall and moved in the ring like a wrestler. Yeah. And they had, I was like, okay, so when does the like spanking start? When does the, generic I'm going to rip your top off start? When does the dumb kicks and shit moves that in the male matches would be considered shit out? No, those two fucking flew at each other, diving off the apron, throwing each other around, hitting real fucking nasty looking moves, slapping and chopping each other and stuff. I was like, this is one of the best women's matches I've ever seen. Yeah. I'm assuming that's because I haven't watched much women's wrestling. Like, it reminds me of a Shimmer match I saw years ago. Oh, and Jack, when the first lady, Nikki Storm, said she was going to Japan, Jack was like, yeah, right, she's not fucking going to Japan. Because Japan women's wrestling is a huge thing type thing. At the end of the match, he was like, she's going to do well in Japan. Just had this great match. It's like, oh, that was a really good women's match. Yeah. It's just a fucking shame that, there's so many people in the crowd were just sort of chanting horrible, lewd things. And, and I'm not anti it. And, I think there's a whole place, and at least their attention was on the match. But I was like, that was a really good match. If 2 guys had that match, that would be a really good match. That was almost as good as the opener. And the opener, for me, was the best match in the card just because it was so quick and energetic and got us all into it so well. And then the main event was Drew Galloway, who was Drew McIntyre, versus some guy called Tommy something, who I think they said was from Holland, but I'm not sure. But the chant Tommy gets is, Tommy, Tommy, you're off your fucking head. Which is that's a really, really good chant. And those two fucking killed each other. They started and they brawled to the outside and they did almost all the same throw into the barrier stuff that the hardcore match had done. Yeah. But then they went to the other side of the arena and were throwing each other into doors and the bar and then back in the ring. And when they got back in the ring, they started doing moves again, and someone shouted, "Wrestling!" I was like, "Oh, thank you, man. I think I'm with you on that one." But they had this really good match, and it was like building and building and building, and then suddenly Drew Galloway hit his finisher twice, and it was done. And it was a bit that felt short. That felt short for what it was compared to the other matches, and I was thinking maybe either because we opened, or it seemed to open late, that they cut down some of the end, or maybe the hardcore match went too long. I'm not sure which one it was, or maybe there was an injury, I don't know. But it was very good, but it felt very oh, it's good, it's over. Oh, okay. Kind of, do you know what I mean? I didn't come out quite satisfied. I felt like I was being built up, and then I didn't ever get to, I'm going to say the word climax. Yeah. But it was and then they came out, they thanked the fans, said the crowd had been awesome. Oh, Tiny Simon, the announcer guy that we always kept calling Tiny Simon, he came out at the interval, he came out to say some stuff, and then he was like, I can't believe you're still here. You're the first audience ever that stayed for this announcement. No one ever pays attention to me here. So they was like, well, yeah, we're new. We don't know what we're doing at an ICW show. You're supposed to tell us to ignore you if you want us to ignore you. But overall, I found out I don't like seeing unprotected chair shots, and there was so fucking many of them. And hardcore matches are not for me, but overall the show was fucking awesome, dude. It was one of the best wrestling events I've seen, and I think it was just because it was so fresh and different compared to WWE. I'm sure if I saw that every week it would spoil me. Although you can go on the ICW website, and I think it's under £4, you get videos of all their shows, and I think they're updated weekly and stuff, and I'm really tempted to do that because it seems like a really good. I'd love to keep something like that.
Yeah.
Like that's my Ring of Honor, and you know how I feel about Ring of Honor. Like I still watch their shitty TV show now, even though it's basically is Dalton Castle going to be on it? No. Okay, this won't be as good a show this week. And it's really bad news for you because they on Twitter they sort of suggested they'll be coming back to Sheffield before the end of the year, and I'm going to pressure you to go. I'm going to push you and push you and push you. And you're going to be like, nah, I'm not really fancy it, I'm not sure. I'm going to push you and keep pushing you.
What day
keep
is
pushing you.
What day are they on?
They haven't announced when it was announced, but this one was on a Sunday night.
Sunday night.
Yeah, you got no fucking excuse if it's a Sunday night. So I'm
Saturday
going
night,
to push
I'll tell
you.
you to fuck off.
If it's Saturday night, I'm going to ring. I have to beat that now. I'm going to ring the place you work and call in sick for you, motherfucker. Yeah.
Right.
So that was it. That was my ICW wrestling thing that I wanted to talk about just because it was an interesting experience. And we both like wrestling.
Bye.
Do people like wrestling anymore?
I don't think I like wrestling anymore.
No.
I don't think I've liked wrestling for a while. I like the idea of wrestling.
Yeah. People who follow and keep up to date
I like
with
the memories of
wrestling.
wrestling.
Yeah. There's that.
Yeah. So, HFP discussed ICW. Sam's first indie experience.
As a proper adult.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm the closest I've ever been to an adult. I don't know if I'm a proper adult yet.
And any filmmakers that watch this from that side of our stuff, we don't want to see you put in a horror film someone being stabbed in the ass with a corkscrew. No one wants to see that.
On film, I don't mind it. Live in a wrestling ring, no. You know?
Bye.
Bye.